Welcome back to God's Media Ministry Classroom. This is episode 5, and it may be the final episode. I'm not going to say that. Not going to say that for sure, but I will say this. The world has changed a great deal since episode 1. Episode 1 was something that really wasn't planned. It just happened in front of the camera, and so I decided that I'd run with it. Yeah, episode 1 just kind of happened in front of the camera, and I decided to run with it based on the request of a good friend of mine out of North Dakota who, when he learned that I had become a Sunday school teacher in the beginning of January, he wanted me to take video cameras into our classroom at church so that he could attend our Singles Career 2 class at North Jacksonville Baptist Church. However, cameras in the classroom is not something that had ever happened at North Jacksonville Baptist Church, and it could be one of those things. A lot of people just don't like cameras and might not choose to show up for class as a result. So there was just no taking cameras into the classroom. But when God laid out that first episode of this series in front of my cameras, and how it was that he prepared me to teach the lesson on Sunday, that I found would make an excellent media production that would allow my friend Brian to attend class without creating an uproar. Well, since that time, the classroom is now exclusively available online from this studio. Brian's able to attend. So the function of reaching out to Mr. Brian Lyons by way of this God's Media Ministry Classroom has kind of passed. Brian's part of our class now. Brian attended our drive-in church on Resurrection Sunday. He was able to see that online. We have that published to YouTube, to the All American Show Productions YouTube channel. You can go see what it looks like to be at a drive-in church on Resurrection Sunday. Because God ordered my steps and allowed me to be there with cameras and have the equipment and software and everything needed to make that publication. And that was no small series of steps that prepared me for Resurrection Sunday 2020 and the role that I would be given to play in that. But we're going to back up just a little bit. I believe if you followed the series, you would see in episode 2 is entitled The Cato Affair. I saw a picture of an old friend, Otis Cato. Hadn't seen him since 1992. Saw a picture of him. And that led to the creation of episode 2 of God's Media Ministry Classroom, The Cato Affair. And in that, I promised that I was going to come back and tell the Otis Cato story in full when the opportunity, or should the opportunity arise, that I could do that. And now that opportunity has arisen, because I met Otis Cato while I was locked up, and now we're all locked up. We're in lockdown, coronavirus lockdown. And I'll tell you something, when you're in lockdown, what you need are some good stories. Now, I've worked, first of all, as far as storytelling goes, I come from a family, an original Florida Cracker family. Florida Crackers are storytellers. My family is full of storytellers. I've grown up all my life listening to some of these stories that my uncles and grandfather and great uncles, they've all told great stories. My grandfather's storytellers. Well, they had stories to tell. And this would serve me well growing up as a storyteller when I served in the United States Army. In my first occupation in the United States Army, I was in a scout platoon in an infantry battalion in the 82nd Airborne Division. Oftentimes, as a scout, you could find yourself at a remote location, dug in, overhead concealment, overlooking a battlefield, and you can't get out and be moving around because your job is to see without being seen. So what are you going to do during all those hours when you're waiting for the enemy to attack so that you can report their movements and then bug out? Well, you got to be able to tell some stories. And when you get locked up in prison, you're going to make some really, really, really good friends if you can tell some stories, because how else are you going to pass the time there? Storytelling. Storytelling's very important if you're locked up. And likewise, I've worked commercial fishing, a prison unto itself. And one of the things you'll find that works out well on a boat is to be able to tell stories, because you've got long hours of monotonous, hard labor every day, and what you need are people who can tell stories on that boat. And trust me, even if you're not a good deckhand, even if you're not a good fisherman, if you're a good storyteller, that captain's going to bring you back aboard that boat because he needs some stories. He needs some stories to grind away those hours out there on the wide open seas. Got to be a storyteller. And so, as I'm getting ready to tell a tale that we all need to hear. I mean, I wanted to tell this tale some time ago, but now, since I've been in self-quarantine for over a month now. It's getting a little, I don't know. Walls sometimes feel like they're closing in. You can look at this hair. I mean, the hair in short order is going to be completely, this hair in short order is going to be completely out of control. I don't know if I'm going to go totally Swayze crazy and poof it on up and ride it, or if I'm going to shave it. If I shave my head, you'll all get to see it. But in preparation for an episode where the name of the game is going to be storytelling, I decided that my Bible reading this morning would come from 1 Peter. Peter was a fisherman. Bible records he was a bit of a loudmouth. He told stories. Fishermen do that. So I went 1 Peter today. I deviated from James, which is where I've been since January. I read the book of James every day. I've been there since January, but as we are in a new thing here, James kind of a quiet guy. St. Peter was absolutely the opposite. I decided I was going to go with some St. Peter this morning. And this is what, and I'm going to discuss some things here that my family members have ridiculed me for even speaking about, that I'm supposed to forget about this when I'm getting ready to tell you. I'm supposed to have just put all that behind me. I'm living a new life. The stories that I'm getting ready to tell, I've caught a lot of grief about. You see in episode 2, the Cato affair, you'll get a little taste of that. But it's one of the greatest stories of my lifetime, and I've got to tell it. I've got to tell that story. And St. Peter, in my reading of the Word this morning, St. Peter lets me know, you got to do it. You got to do it. 1 Peter, I'm just go straight on to chapter 2. Start reading from there before we get in to what it is we're going to be getting into today. Therefore, laying aside all malice, all deceit, all hypocrisy, envy, and all evil speaking, as newborn babes desire the pure milk of the word, that you may grow thereby, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is gracious, coming to him as a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by God, and precious. You also, as living stones, are being built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. All right. Throughout today's presentation, you're going to be looking at a man who absolutely has nothing to lose. And that's true. That's why I'm telling this story. I've got nothing to lose. I'm a living stone, and I am going to give praise to God. Okay? And there are going to be people who are going to think that this is the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. And that's fine. Because the stone that was rejected by the builders became the chief cornerstone. I am a living stone. I am, by the word of God, by the power of the Holy Spirit, part of a new house that's being built, a spiritual house, a house of worship. And Jesus Christ explained to the Pharisees that, if you guys, you people, you religious people, okay, you educated people who are supposed to know the law and who are supposed to obey it, if you will not praise God, then I will raise up these stones to praise me. Jesus Christ just said it. He told them like it was. He was straight. He said, if you're not going to praise me, I'm going to raise up these stones. They're going to praise me. So I am a stone in his sling this morning, and I'm going to praise him. And I'm going to show you how, in the worst of times, through the worst of everything, how God has ordered my steps. Not that you should look at me as anything other than, hey, wow, that's a great story. Well, you know what? What God will do for me, he'll do for you. I promise you, if God would take the time to love me and teach me and order my steps, he'll do the same thing for you. Don't you ever doubt it. Don't you ever doubt it for a minute. Don't you doubt it for a second. And that's the only reason that this stone is going to cry out some praise this morning, because this is what people need. They need to see that in the midst of things that appear to be the biggest disaster ever, that you just might be living your finest hour ever. That's what's happening right now. A lot of people are really upset with what's going on, but you got to understand that the Lord is ordering your steps, raising you to higher ground. And I'm getting caught up. I'll tell you another thing. While we may not do another episode of God's Media Ministry Classroom, because I just signed up for a bunch of classes on Adobe Creative Cloud, actually hundreds of lessons on all this software that I've got that I don't even use. I use Photoshop a little bit, and I use Adobe Premiere Pro for the production of these videos, and that's it. I've got a bundle of software that I don't use because I don't know how to use it. So last night I signed up for some lessons, and I may be just hunkered down learning how to present God's Word just a little bit more professionally. In the Media Ministry Classroom, I won't be able to share what I'm being taught exactly, maybe, I don't know. But the classroom's going to be the classroom for sure here very shortly. We're going to rewind the tape a little bit on All American Show Productions. I've told the story before how All American Show Productions came into being. Ran my mouth to a business owner out at Jacksonville Beach about how I could help his business make money by producing a pro wrestling show in his establishment. Little did I know the guy was going to call my bluff. So I had to put up. And when I started to put up, I found out I was going to have to put up about 5 to 6 times as much money as I previously anticipated. And as a result of that, a very astute coworker told me that I should start my own business so that at least this can be a business expense that I could write off. And so that's what I did. All American Show Productions was born, not knowing what was going to happen next, but knowing what had happened. And really, honestly, that whole episode about me running my mouth in front of that business owner was started as a result of a prayer ministry outreach in the wake of the Pulse nightclub shooting. In August of 2017, All American Show Productions came to life on paper. And then in December of that same year, my best friend, since the 3rd grade, he died. He drank himself to death. And it was an awful thing. It was a very, it was something that is going to pain me for the rest of my life. And when someone, and when my friend passed away, he didn't want a funeral, he didn't want a headstone, he didn't want a grave. He just wanted to be dead, and he wanted to be gone. But his friends decided that there was no way that they could let him depart this life without doing something in a meaningful way to say goodbye. And because I was the owner, and because I am the owner of All American Show Productions, and because that was my best friend, then I decided I would use my corporate power to produce a memorial show. A memorial show. A celebrity roast style formatted show. I was going to produce a memorial service in the form of a celebrity roast at the Bay Street Bar and Grill, downtown Jacksonville, where we could lay out a buffet and host a crowd, bring in a comedian, do it all the way it's supposed to be done. Give John a proper send-off. Now, what do you do at a memorial service that is a celebrity roast? You tell stories. And I told some stories. And the beginning of the Cato affair, the beginning of the storytelling for the Cato affair actually started at the John Tubbs Memorial Celebrity Roast. And so now for the first part of the story that we're going to be telling today, I take you to the Bay Street Bar and Grill, downtown Jacksonville, Florida. March 24th, 2018. This is the John Tubbs Memorial Celebrity Roast, and here's just a piece of it.
This is awesome, man. Like, I actually feel like love in this room. And it's not even like pitiful love, or it's not come feel sorry for me love. This is like genuine, I missed the moment, and this is how I'm gonna have closure in that moment. Brad, when you come up here, this doesn't need to be that loud, okay? You guys gotta stop with some bass in your voice, because I'm yelling right now, Brad. Brad, you look so good tonight. You look like a whole snack tonight. You look like 17 Instagram likes. Please make sure y'all get pictures of Brad tonight. He looks great, man. Where's she at? I want to say shouts out to the bartender for being great tonight, too. She's awesome. The bartender has been awesome. Awesome. Okay, so that gets me a follow back on Instagram? For sure? I don't know about following now. I gotta be popping now. Doppelganger. Okay. So everything went great tonight. We had some beautiful speeches by some beautiful people. I've been involved, but now it's time for the gentleman that helped put this entire event together, that reached out to me, that when he spoke with me and my manager, he said that the Lord put this on his heart. And I didn't even know how to respond or say no to that. It was a beautiful thing. I've been booked for a lot of things. I've been involved in a lot of different areas. But something like tonight, it was like near and dear to me. So this gentleman knows John very, very, very well. I want y'all to please just make the loudest noise, the biggest applause, and be as receptive as you possibly can be for this gentleman. Just a beautiful soul, beautiful spirit, beautiful person. So please, without any further ado, put your hands together for Brad. Keep it going, come on guys, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going.
Man, Josh Pray is the answer to my prayers, I'm telling you what. I was trying to put this thing together, and there came a point where I just realized it wasn't going to work, that I needed help. And Josh has been out on the internet quite prolifically for quite a few years now, and somehow I'd never seen him until the day after I asked God to send me some help. And he had the same name as John's son, Josh, and he came about because I prayed. And just, when I watched him and saw what he did, and he reminded me of another good friend of mine, Mark Shepard, it all spoke to me. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I certainly wish John could be here tonight, but when he didn't show up at the 8th grade superlative dance to pick up his Most Shy Boy award, I knew he wouldn't show up for his own funeral. So, no shock there. But it's appropriate that we'd have a memorial service for John in a bar. Didn't have no problems getting him to go there. But also a bar down on Bay Street. John used to live on Bay Street. Nobody really remembers that. It's right across the street, but the time finally came when they closed the old jail and they moved him a couple of blocks over. And that's where he became the first inmate in the new jail to be caught making alcohol. And we're on the news every night at the evening news for 8 months, and I'm expecting, maybe my friends could tone it down just a little bit. Now, see, I'm going to tell these stories because if I don't tell them, they ain't going to get told. Tonight's statute of limitations has officially run out. We can do it all. Well, I mean, seriously, man, there's some pretty funny stories going on. Well, shortly after that, everything was going smoothly. John had that nice life, and I had that nice life I was looking for when I got out of the Army. Everything was going smooth, but then it all of a sudden wasn't going smooth. For the first time, I saw John getting a little belligerent after drinking some alcohol. And I thought maybe John had a drinking problem. But he did, but he had another problem that he addressed by challenging someone to a duel because somebody couldn't go find their own wife, had to go find his, and dared call himself an ordained minister. So John offered him pistols or swords. Said, if you ain't got one, I'll give you one, but we're going to handle this. And he said, well, what are we going to do? We're going to kill each other? And John just calmly said, no, only one of us is going to die. Then he lit a cigar. He took care of, and that's how his first marriage ended. And I only say that because I got to tell you that there's some big things that happened next, and this played a big part of it. About 10 days later, it was on a Friday, his estranged wife was going to come by and get her stuff. After I got home, I told John on Thursday, I said, man, don't do nothing stupid. Please don't do nothing stupid. So I got home from Friday, fired up the grill, got ready for my weekend, and I got a phone call from John, and he said, he's sounding really upset, and he says, look, man, I need your help. I got something going on over here, and I need your help, and if you say no, I'll totally understand, but I can't talk about it on the phone. Can you come on over? Well, I think you know where my mind probably went at that point, what had happened. So, went and got some rubber boots, some rubber gloves, some coveralls, some bleach, some Visqueen, some duct tape, the usual stuff. Threw it in the van. I'm going, oh my God, body disposal. Body disposal. That's what I'm going to have to do tonight. So I'm driving to John's house, and I'm coming into a T intersection at Cole Road. Now there's a dead end at this end where John's mother lives and where John lives, and there's a couple of neighbors that live down there, and then there's the Bacardi rum plant, and then you go to Main Street. So I'm driving toward this T intersection, and I see this ambulance coming from the dead end side of the road with its lights off, not going fast, and a police car behind it with somebody in the back. I'm going, oh man, I got there too late. But at least I ain't gonna get dirty. So I decided I'd go down there and just see what I was gonna see. You know, the big crime scene unit still taking pictures and all that. I knew what I was gonna see. I didn't see none of that. None of it. So I pulled on up, knocked on the door. There's John. No dead bodies, no blood, no nothing. Just like another day. I said, John. I said, what's going on? I said, did everything go all right, you know, with Cheryl today? And he says, oh yeah, she's been and gone. I got bigger problems to think about right now. I'm going, oh, okay, all right. Well, I can't hardly imagine what that might be. Interesting story, to say the least. I'll never forget that day. And now for the second part of that story, I'm going to take you back to May of 2019. A Toastmasters meeting where I was giving my icebreaker speech. Now, I've been a member of Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters back in 1991 as a result of my association with John Tubbs. I was able to join Toastmasters. And in 2019, I became a member of a Toastmasters chapter again for the first time since 1992 was I a Toastmaster. And the new Toastmasters chapter, everybody was giving their icebreaker speeches. Icebreaker speech is where you break the ice with the crowd. You let them know who you are. You tell them an interesting story. You kick open the door so that they know who you are. And so I had the best icebreaker speech anybody could ever imagine. So here it is. I'm going to take you now to my Toastmasters icebreaker speech in May of 2019 that'll tell the second half of essentially the Cato story, the oddest Cato story. Everybody's been waiting to hear it. A lot of people have been waiting to hear this. So without any further delay, here we go. Second half of the Cato story, the rest of the story.
Well, now for the part of the show that matters the most, and I was drawn to it initially, we get to our speakers. Our first speaker needs no introduction. You can't help but be drawn to Brad. For reasons other than his coat and his shoes. He's a mercurial individual. He brings talent. He brings his personality. He brings life to the community here. And he'll be talking about the 2 minutes that changed his life forever here at Toastmaster. And he's going to do it in more than 2 minutes. Brad?
Thank you, Barry. Over the years, I've been known as a man of many names. I believe I mentioned in my first 10 topics that I was featured in Time and Newsweek magazine at an early age alongside Yasser Arafat and Fidel Castro. Back then, they called me a hero. By 1991, I made those same publications and many more along with television, and there was a mercurial change in my status. I had a new name that started with the letter T. Now, I know what you're thinking. Toastmaster. That's right. In 1990, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and that set off a series of events that led to me joining Toastmasters International. And my name at that time was inmate number 12506-018 at the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida, where I was doing time with some fellow soldiers for the part that we played in what is known as the federal case involving the largest single seizure of illegal firearms and explosives in the history of the United States. And as we made the news nationwide, Dan Rather and Bill O'Reilly called us terrorists. And what self-respecting terrorist can promote his cause without public speaking skills? How do you overthrow the government if you can't even talk? So we joined Toastmasters, and one Friday night I'm down at the Education Center, and the topic master throws this out. I'm an atheist. I do not believe that God exists, but I know in this room that there are several people who would rather die than deny that he exists. And I hope that one of you will come up here and prove that God does in fact exist. So I'm sitting in the back row, hiding, because you don't just get up and talk in front of a bunch of prisoners, because they see through everything, and I was afraid I was going to embarrass God. Instead, I was embarrassing myself in front of God, because I had other options. I didn't have to go to prison. In fact, the day that I found out that I would be spending the rest of my life in federal prison, I formulated a way out in a couple of minutes. I had the opportunity, the means, and the motivation to go kill the federal informant and then kill myself. And as I was 26 years old, freaking out, going, well, I didn't think it ended up like this. I'm driving up I-95 North and I'm crying out, just more of a breathing exercise than anything. Oh God, please help me. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I just kept saying that over and over again. And when you know it, God answered. He said, you will go where I send you and you will learn the lessons that I teach. So I knew that God was sending me wherever he was sending me, and it was according to his purposes. And a sense of peace came over me that was not something that could have come from me. I was hysterical. And I drove home, saw my family that night, and ended up joining Toastmasters a few months later. And I'm sitting in the back of the room just cringing. And finally, before the gavel came down on that topic, I raised my hand and sheepishly walked forward. And I noticed that there was this old man Cato, a paratrooper from my unit who served in the Korean War, and he's giving me this sly gangster smile. Cato was a gangster. He was doing 7 years for illegal bingo. North Carolina. So I get to the podium. I give it my best for 2 minutes. Can't remember all that I said. Don't know if I convinced anyone of the existence of God. But I won the table topics and a Hershey's bar with almonds that I could enjoy while watching the Headbangers Ball later that evening. And after lights out, I'm walking to the bathroom, or the latrine, and here comes old man Cato walking out in his pajamas holding his toothbrush. He looks just like my grandfather. And so much like my grandfather that my grandmother used to flirt with him in the visiting room right in front of his wife. And now I've got one of those, you might be a redneck if your grandmother's working with prisoners while she's coming to visit you. And anyway, Cato says to me, I knew you wouldn't keep your mouth shut. Yeah, I knew you weren't going to sit there and keep your mouth shut. I can see by the way you carry yourself and the way that you treat others that you're a Christian and you just weren't going to keep silent. I knew you weren't going to keep your mouth shut. And I was overwhelmed with that, because Cato could see through anything. He was a con man, like I said. And more than that, he was a veteran of my unit. And to have that confidence instilled in me at the lowest point in my life, to be called a Christian while I was in the belly of the beast, that was a marvelous thing. And so because of that, I have spent the rest of my life trying to figure out how it is that I could have spent my 2 minutes better and more effectively. And so I've pursued the evidence of the existence of God, like St. Thomas Aquinas, and God is real. He spoke to me. He saved my life. And so those 2 minutes in Toastmasters, they changed my life forever, because it made me a better man. And I'm so thankful that I did go to federal prison, that I didn't blow my brains out, that I have arrived to the point in my life where I'm at today, because it's not by my hand, it's by God's hand. And if you would like the opportunity to see my 2-minute argument stretched out to 1 hour and 5 minutes, I have gift wrap DVDs left over from my best friend's funeral. One of the guys I went to prison for, I've gotten gift wrap DVDs that'll take that argument out to 1 hour and 5 minutes for you. They're free for anyone who cares to. And of all the names that I've been known in this life, I'll take the name Christian. Thank you very much. That you just heard set off a series of events that led to me losing the highest paying job that I ever had. This particular Toastmasters chapter was a chapter that was formed within the organization that I used to work for. And Toastmasters is supposed to be a place where you can speak freely without any fear of retribution or blowback of any kind. You're there presenting yourself. You're trying to improve your public speaking skills so that you may become an effective leader. You can't lead if you can't communicate, and Toastmasters trains the leaders of tomorrow. My workplace was not ready for Toastmasters at all. I'm going to leave it at that. The keeping it real zone, which is what Toastmasters is supposed to be, not where I work. You can't keep you there. If you kept it real, where I work, used to work, if you kept it real where I used to work, then you would eventually be walked out of the building, as I was on December 13th, Friday the 13th of 2019. Brad, was it really worth it? That was the highest paying job you ever had, and now I'm not even eligible for unemployment compensation. Was it worth it? You bet it was worth it. It was worth every sentence of it. Absolutely. You see, God was ordering my steps. You see, I was removed from a high capacity office building, hundreds of people in that office, before this coronavirus ever got broke out. And I was already in a frame of mind, having cut back on all kinds of everything due to loss of income. I was already hunkering down, getting ready for this quarantine. My mind was getting right. And not only that, the bigger thing is that I was pursuing what it was that God wanted me to do, which you're looking at, media ministry. But I'm going to back up just a little bit and talk to you about some things, how God has been ordering my steps all my life, so that you can see the presence of God and recognize it in your own life. At the time when I went to federal prison, I was working in the commercial lighting industry. I was working for a company that no longer exists. An offshoot of it exists, the VZ Lighting Group, but I was working for a company, a statewide sales agency. The name of the company was Bob VZ and Associates. I was a quotation specialist there. I bid projects. And one of the projects that I got a hold of months before I was sent to prison was a project called the Leon County Federal Detention Center. And I was successful low bidder through my wholesale distribution partner, Consolidated Electric Supply, a gentleman by the name of Dan Rainey, outside salesman there. Sold the lighting package, and I wrote up orders for that project 2 weeks before I self-surrendered to federal prison. I was given the option of self-surrender because I did not present myself as a risk to flight, and it saves the federal government a lot of money if they just let me feed myself until the time comes that I'm to carry out my prison sentence. And I self-surrendered. Before I showed up to self-surrender, I called the supervisor of the electrical shop at the prison, asked him, was there anything that I needed to bring that might make his life a little easier? And he told me a few things, and I self-surrendered to prison with catalogs in hand. The consummate salesman, trying to be of service to others. About 6 to 8 weeks after I got to the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida, my light fixtures started showing up on the job site. They were wrong. Something got wrong. Something big wrong happened. They shipped metal halide. They were supposed to be shipping high-pressure sodium floodlights, and they shipped the totally wrong fixtures. Anyway, they had to consult me to come and try to figure out what had happened and how to fix it. I became the supply clerk for the electrical shop at the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida. And I got to write up purchase orders and various different things to the very suppliers that I used to deal with on the outside. The Lord had ordered my steps. And the Federal Detention Center, the Leon County Federal Detention Center, is built along the same fence line as the facility that I was serving at. So it was essentially the same place. The Lord had ordered my steps in that regard. After I had been released from the Federal Correctional Institution, the Florida Department of Corrections had a huge project coming up. They were going to add some 330 cell maximum security T buildings to 65 different institutions across the state of Florida. And the gentleman who was in purchasing at the Florida Department of Corrections at the time knew my father, knew that I had been locked up, and decided that I would be the best person to speak to about a lighting design for their upcoming project. So I was in Tallahassee making some sales calls one day when John DeLordo of Failsafe Lighting gave me a call directly and told me to get myself over to the Florida Department of Corrections, talk to a gentleman named Mike Barouse. We set up a meeting. They got me security passes to several different correctional facilities within the state. They knew I had no problem going into a lockdown situation and being able to do my job with a clear head, and that I could come up with the best suggestions of anyone as to how to create a safe and secure lighting environment. And that's what I did. I built the model for all of these prefabricated buildings and ended up becoming successful low bidder. It's the state project. They have to put it out for bid, even though I designed it. And I was successful low bidder on those projects. 2 weeks before the orders were going to be released to the factories for those projects, my boss came up to me on a Tuesday and told me that as of this coming Thursday, we would be out of business. And he started calling up the competitors and handing out project folders to them to go and swipe up some jobs and go make some monies. He was trying to go out as a good guy, such a noble man. Well, I grabbed my project folders because those were my projects. Nobody else could touch those. I'm the only one who could know what was going on. 65 different facilities across the state of Florida, prefabricated buildings. You've got cells, right? A lot of delivery coordination has to be taking place. A lot of manufacturing coordination has to be taking place. Somebody's got to have their hand on the wheel that actually knows what they're doing. So I grabbed the project folders and I went home. And I was essentially working from home without pay. Sounds a little familiar, don't it? Well, you're looking at it now. I'm working from home without pay, but I've already been here before, see? I know that my steps are being ordered. I work those projects from my house. I'm tired of that moth flying around in here. I work those projects from my house. And when it was that our manufacturers were able to get together a partnership deal for a new sales agency, guess who the most valuable player in that enterprise was going to be? And that's right, the guy who's sitting on nearly $1 million worth of business coming in the front door before day one. That was going to help pay some bills quite early on. So I walked myself right on into a new job as a project estimator, again, in the commercial lighting industry. The Lord had ordered my steps and placed me where I needed to be placed. Just like he's done now. And just like he's doing for a lot of you right now. You're at home and you're thinking all of this stuff is a huge setback. You're thinking that, and I know that we're all facing some very difficult circumstances. I get that and I understand that. But please understand that sometimes you can't get to higher ground until you pull up your roots in that lower ground. You got to get moving on. And sometimes it takes a force to remove you from the things that you're familiar with and the things that you're comfortable with to get you from where you are to where you need to be. Now, it may be that you're suffering a loss of income right now. You may even be losing your business. But you've got an opportunity now sitting at home to get training in a new field. Certainly, to spend some time in God's Word, and He will definitely order your steps. Call out to Him. He'll take care of you. But as this thing goes on, a lot of you are going to slowly start giving in to some of your anxieties. And I'm telling you right now, do not do that. What's happening right now is something that you need to sit back and go with the flow. Don't buck the wind and the tide. Ride it. You got to ride it because there ain't nothing you can do about it. Now, you can complain, you can act silly, you can put stupid stuff on Facebook all day long if it makes you feel better. But right now, your steps are being ordered. And right now, you've been ordered to stay at home. Now, what is it that you can do from your confinement facility where you're at right now that can order your steps into the future? Why don't you pray about it? Why don't you seek God's word? Seek out God's will through his word. You can seek out God's will through his word because his word promises that if you ask for wisdom, God will pour it out on you liberally. I'm going to take you to the book of James, and I'm going to lay it on you right here in chapter 1. James explains to us in the first chapter, he tells us straight up, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all of his ways." Trust me, I've been that double-minded man. I was unstable in all of my ways. That was when I leaned into my own understanding in the midst of a trial where I thought that I could get through the trial. My family was facing a trial. I was facing a trial. Though it seemed like the world was coming to an end, and I thought I had all the answers. And my answers involved me breaking the law. My answer to the situation involved me doing my own startup criminal enterprise. Okay? I leaned into my own understanding, and I thought so little of myself that I told myself, well, I'm the big bad convict. I've done time before. If I get caught for doing this, well, I'll be going just back to familiar waters where I'll be able to survive. Whereas my family is not doing too well without my criminal enterprise. So I talked myself into a bunch of silliness that I just shouldn't have done. But it taught me a major lesson, and I'm passing it on to you. Don't lean into your own understanding. Lean on God. You've got his word. I would advise you just start out in the book of James. Read the book of James every day for a while. Go to 1st and 2nd Peter, then go to 1st and 2nd John, then go to Paul, start in Acts, and go through all of Paul's letters, then go through the 4 Gospels. Get that New Testament read, and I guarantee you it's going to change your life. And now you've got the time to do it. Whatever it was, whatever rut you were stuck in, now is your opportunity to get out of it. The world is not going to be the same ever again. Things have changed, y'all. Don't hang on to old things. Don't say to yourself, I can't wait till when things get back to normal. Do y'all remember what normal was like? A lot of killings every weekend. Every weekend in most any major city in the United States, there were a lot of killings. And the killings continue, but they've been abated some. What we had wasn't working. So let's not say, I can't wait for things to get back to normal. Normal wasn't good. Let's go for something better. And that's what you should be doing right now. You're hunkered down in your bunker, and you've got plenty of time to do some of those things that you didn't have time to do before. Now you've got the opportunity to do them. Call out to God. He will take care of you. He will provide for you. The birds of the air don't plant, but they've got something to eat every day. God takes care of the birds. If he takes care of the birds, he's definitely going to take care of his children. And I'm living proof. And that's the only reason why I'm telling you this story this morning, is so that you can know, and you don't even know, that's only a little bit of my life. Okay? I could go over time and time again, and I will. Tell you the things that God has done for me. Not because I'm trying to draw a spotlight on myself. I'm trying to draw a spotlight on Jesus Christ. Because time is coming short. Time is getting to be a little short. And you need to know the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ and what it can do for you. Now, when I became convicted of my sins on Good Friday, 2013, and got down to that altar when the invitation was given as fast as I could get there on Resurrection Sunday, 2013, I asked the Lord for three things. Three things. I asked him to forgive me. I asked him to give me a new life. And I asked him to give me the opportunity to serve him with that new life. And he gave it all to me. He gave me all of that. I've got a new life. I've been given a new opportunity to serve him with this new life. And it's been the most wonderful experience ever. And no, I don't have an income. I'm not making any money doing this. But you know what? I'm living the best days of my life. You know why? Because I'm walking according to the plan that God had given me. I'm walking according to the plan that he had been working on since before I was born. I mean, it's clear to me now, my fascination with cameras and my Viewmaster projector where I made presentations up on the wall for the kids in the neighborhood, and the pro wrestling events that we used to hold in the backyard on Saturday, and the backyard preaching that went on Sunday. The Lord was ordering my steps since I was a child. And he's been ordering your steps. And he's ordering your steps right now. Follow those steps. Follow the order that God has placed in your life. And if you don't know what that order is, hey, go to him and ask. Go to him and ask in faith. Because if you ain't got faith, God's not gonna pour out on you something that your cup cannot hold. Ask God in faith to show you what it is that you're supposed to be doing with your life during this time and thereafter. Ask him to show you what it is that you're supposed to be doing, and he will show you. He did it for me. He'll do it for you. I mean, he's doing it right now for me. I've got no idea where all of this is headed. You know what? I'm glad. Because every time I thought I knew where I was going and I tried to chart my own way to get there, guess what happened? Disaster. I ended up in a ditch. Now I'm taking my hands off the wheel completely. I have to. I've learned, finally. This is God. My life belongs to God. I'm going to let God direct my path. Your life belongs to God. Let God direct your path. This is an awesome opportunity that you're experiencing right now. And a lot of people are grumbling. They're not happy with it. They can't wait to get out of the house. Well, I'm telling you something. One of the greatest things, maybe even, now I'm not going to say the greatest thing, but one of the greatest moments of my life happened to me while I was in federal prison. While my family was crying for me, while I was living what I thought was the worst moment in my life. No, it was my finest hour. I was given 2 minutes to prove the existence of God. And I've spent the rest of my life figuring out how it is that I could have spent those 2 minutes better. And you know what? That made me a better man. That made me a better person. That made me a more productive member of society. I am able to reach out to you right now and speak to you with all the confidence in the world that God's got his hand on this situation, God's got his hand on your life, and God is going to take care of you and your family. Quit looking to the government. Quit looking to your employer. They don't care about you the way God cares about you. You know, to the government, you're just a source of tax revenue, or perhaps someone who can be manipulated to vote one way or the other. To your employer, you're just somebody who's going to make them money. If you think they sent you to work at home because they care about you, no. They sent you home and bought all the equipment that you need to work from home because they care about themselves. And they knew what was going to happen to themselves if they didn't do that. People don't go spending money on their employees unless they have to. That's just business. So please don't think that whoever is providing your income right now really cares about you. You've got an income because God has decided to bless you with one, and you should be thankful for it. And you should do your work to the utmost of your ability. Okay? But if you don't have a job, and if you don't have an income, then I'm going to tell you what. You don't have to worry about nothing. Get down on your knees and call out to God with all of your being, as I have done many times. And you know what? Every single time that I've done it, He's been there. I mean, I'm on my way to go murder somebody and then blow my own brains out, and I'm calling out to God, not really calling out to God, just trying to get some breath control because I was losing my mind. I'm screaming out, oh God, please help me. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And He answers me. You will go where I send you, and you will learn the lessons that I teach. And guess what? I went where I was sent, and I learned something. And now I want you to learn from it. And that's the only reason why I did this publication. So I don't know if there's going to be another episode of God's Media Ministry Classroom, because it's kind of outlived its purpose now. Everything is media ministry now in the Christian church. Everything is online. It's prayer ministry. It's media ministry. It's God's holy church cut loose from its four walls, got attached to those buildings. God has moved us out into the world, into the atmosphere, amongst those who need to hear us. Now, do yourself a favor. Take this time that you've got. Take this time that you've got at home. Get into a study of God's Word. Get into prayer. And prepare to receive your blessings. And that's all I got. I don't know if there's going to be another episode of this show. Really don't. But you can catch us. You can catch us Sunday mornings, a Sunday morning love stream, if we don't continue to have technical difficulties, as we have been. Facebook is just not ready for this much live streaming. I don't think YouTube is either. I think they're trying to get themselves sorted out. We're getting ourselves sorted out. But the Word of God is going out into a lost and dying world. And let me tell you, time is running short. So choose this day who you will follow. As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord.